So when you were growing up, you obviously experienced racial discrimination because it was a segregated area then, is that right?
Yeah, that defined the entire segregation, discrimination, racism. That was just a part of life. Like it's not something you could this is not philosophy I'm talking now. It's just how it was. Your neighborhood looked a certain way. The white neighborhoods were a certain way. Black people generally lived in our area on one side of the railroad tracks. We still had ditches in our streets, and any type of systems always worked against you. And you had to. It was just it was what the system was. You didn't have distance from it, so you didn't have. It's easy to look back on a thing and experience it not the way you experienced it when you grew in it. When you grew in it, it was very much a fact of life. So I happen to be someone who never liked it. So I fought with it a lot and had a lot of problems in that system. But most people adapted to it and were okay with it. They didn't like it, but they would sometimes you're in a bad situation. In this case, we talk about racism. It could be anything. It could be a health situation.
Right.
The degree to which you're willing to fight against it really is based on your ability to accept the pain of fighting against it.
So are you surprised about the Black Lives Matter situation? Here we are in the year 2020, well advanced past the time that you grew up, and we still have racial problems of that type.
Yeah, we're not anywhere near advanced past what I grew up with. So no, I'm not surprised by it. I had the honor to go into so many American schools throughout the 80s and 90s and early 2000s. It probably well over 1,000 schools. So we have a segregation in our systems in general. So no, it doesn't. None of it is surprising to me.
So today, as a famous jazz musician, you're recognized all over the country and many places around the world. Do you feel you are still suffering from racial discrimination? Do you still feel, even despite your exalted status in the music world, you are really not treated the same as you would be if you were white?
Yes, I feel that. I feel it in terms of the kind of intellectual patronization that I receive, the low level of criticism of our music. I'm subject to things, of course, nothing like what I grew up with, nor do I make a habit of complaining about it constantly. Because I'm also treated in a way with so much respect by so many people that for me to complain would be past gratuitous. So if you ask me the question directly, yes, I will say I've been treated unfairly by newspapers. Something like the New York Times, the way our institution, Jazz at Lincoln Center, has been covered is abominable. Even though we get articles, the quality of those articles are always very poorly researched. The writers, oftentimes down through the history, lack the intelligence and depth of engagement with the form to be qualified to speak on it in a paper of record. But because it's jazz, it doesn't matter. So that's only in direct response to your question, because I don't want to I don't want to confuse it with when I was growing up or the situations that I found myself in, or my father's situation or grandfather's, or let's go back in the generations. So I'm not doing that. And I'm very, very grateful for how I've been treated by people all over this country of all kinds.